And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here for the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate you joining us. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without a good friend, and my good friend indeed for many of these multiverses now is a man, the myth, the legend, the guy who knows pop culture inside and out. He is, of course, our own TJ Johnson. TJ, glad to have you back on the program today.
Hey man, I'm always glad to be a part of the pop culture cosmos.
Now, I wanted to do, and actually, you made a great suggestion. You suggested something along the lines of doing a show to the common questions that are brought out to you out there in the wild, or for me out there in the wild from my family, my friends on pop culture, also as well some of the things that are brought up from time to time in our comments when I do live shows and whatnot. Whether I do it on the Pop Culture Cosmos or the Lakers Fast Break, I get a surprising amount of Laker pop culture questions when I do the Lakers Fast Break. So it's interesting to see, especially because them late at night on these post games and things have happened during the course of the day that people want to talk about. So yeah, just bring up some questions that we often get referred to because we always want to go ahead and make sure that we take care of you guys out there on answering those questions. And if you do have any questions going forward, you can put them in the comments below or at popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. So with that being said, my friend, I wanted again, this was your idea that you brought out.
Okay. I just thought it'd be fun, like the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about podcasting, and we've been doing this for, I mean, you and I personally been doing it for a good little while now, and we
Hmm.
met obviously podcasting. So I think what's fun about being a podcaster is this ability to have a forum to speak on, to talk about things, to get things off your chest. But what's also fun is this ability to have interaction and the ability to talk to people in Tokyo, right? Or wherever, Brazil, wherever our podcast reaches, and if somebody listens to it and something that we said resonates with them, being positive or negative, or if they just are curious about something, then they can reach out and talk to us. So I kind of thought it'd be fun. I think it's the first time we've done it. I know it's the first time I've done it with you. First time
Mm.
we've done like a listener feedback question answer type thing. So I thought it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I no problem at all for me. And that I enjoy answering questions and having those kind of conversations. So, what's first on the docket? What is the most common question that people bring up when it's pop culture related to you?
Okay, so the biggest question right now
Hmm.
is what has been Marvel's biggest mistake since Endgame, and what would you do to fix it?
Very good. Absolutely. I like that. I like that. So, lead us in, my friend.
Oh goodness. All right. Well, I feel like, and this is something actually I kind of had a conversation about it today at work, so it works. Feel like Marvel's biggest mistake since Endgame is just stretching their net too far too quickly, if that makes sense. We have to remember
Mhm.
that the Endgame was like the culmination of 10 years of storytelling that was all pointed, right? It was pointed storytelling. It wasn't just telling a story for the sake of telling it. These were all intricately, if not completely woven together, but intricately kind of put together to tell a bigger story, a bigger overarching story, but all having different chapters and subplots in them. So once we got past Endgame and kind of took that collective exhale and the collective, okay, that's done. Now what's next? I feel like, and chime in as you will, Gerald, but I feel like they just got a bit too big for their britches. And now they're like, okay, we need to get new characters, new stars, new everything, new storylines. Like we need to go bigger, go better. Like that's like always the sequel, right? Bigger, badder, bigger explosions, longer, like everything. And I feel like they just got too big too quickly, and they just spread themselves out too far. It became an issue of quality versus quantity, and not the good kind. Like they just started putting out a bunch of stuff just to put it out, and everything was not a hit. So for me, the biggest mistake thus far has been just casting their net too far and trying to put their hands in too many different things without really any cohesive um binding. It's like you make a brisket or something. You have to have like a binding thing, or you make ribs. You gotta have a binder, and there just hasn't been a really good binding anything since Endgame to me.
Absolutely. And I'll just say this. I think if there's one big mistake that they made, their biggest mistake as far as after Endgame they did is like you said too much, too far, too soon. And with me, I just think that it's like they put up a dartboard and they had so many things on this dartboard that they wanted to complete. They had so many things in this dartboard that they wanted to do and get across. They had so many new characters that they want to give that kind of use the professional wrestling term rub from a very successful end game because that's what it did, especially in
Right.
those early years. They wanted to go ahead and really get the rub from Endgame and what happened in Endgame to these new characters. I just think that I see it like a dartboard. I think they put up a dartboard and threw too many things in too many places. Like you said, it's basically I'm saying the same thing. They lost a direction.
Yes.
They lost a cohesive, focused narrative, and they lost what works what works as far as and what worked with the previous 10 years of absolutely uh, good storytelling on an overarching basis. Not every movie in the original MCU lineup was good. Well, actually, it was there was quite a few that were stinkers that we had to sit through.
Yeah, there
But
were.
we were all waiting for the end,
Yes.
the credits. How is it going to tie into this bigger narrative? And not all of them really did, but we thought that it would tell a larger story. And ultimately, most of them, there was enough pieces, there was enough dots that were connected, there were enough
Mhm.
puzzle pieces put in place so that it did tell a larger narrative. And I think Marvel lost sight in that. And I think they lost their direction. They lost their way, TJ. And it is so hard once you lose your way to get that back. And I don't think they have it all the way back personally. I think that, yes, it's leading up to Doomsday and all that, but I don't think the run up to Doomsday
Mhm. Mhm.
has been the greatest as far as the storytelling that they want to go ahead and do, the overarching narrative, the end credits, whatnot. Some of the end credits have really been bad, quite frankly. In fact, I think the one in Captain America: Brave New World, I think the one that we saw there is probably the worst
Yeah.
in MCU history. I just see it again that as far as a lot of people now are excited because it seemed like they've stepped off that MCU platform when Endgame finished, and now a decent amount. I'm not going to say everyone. A decent amount are ready to jump back in it again because they see what's going on. I still would have kept Robert Downey Jr. under wraps, secret. They could have because it's mainly a CGI role. It's mainly a CGI role as Doctor Doom. I mean, he's he's going to have black dots on his face for most of the time that he's doing this stuff, right? I
Mhm.
mean, from
Mhm. Mhm.
but so they could have kept it under wraps. I really think that would have just, come December 18th would have been a huge, huge win as far as just the reach of man, RDJ's back in him, just the talk of
Yeah.
what would happen. Because the talk of that at that Comic Con where he showed off that he's going to be the next Doom. It was great, but it would have been so much better as a surprise because we get so few surprises in entertainment now. We always have a tendency to see what's coming. And
Mhm.
I just see the direction. It's not all the way back there yet, but again, with 2 out of 3 movies that are, good in 2025, again, those 2 of those movies are not in my top 10, but just outside of my top 10. I just think that it's heading in the right direction, but it's not quite all the way there yet.
Well, I agree. I think that it's heading in the right direction, but for a couple of different reasons. You spoke about, we both kind of spoke about how they've gotten too far, too big, too fast. I think we have to really contextualize some things. One, where we were um as a consumer when the MCU first kicked off back in 2008 with the very first Iron Man. We have to remember what the world was like in 2008. We have to remember how much access we did or really did not have in 2008. Like the landscape of storytelling and the landscape of the way that we consume media has changed dramatically from 2008 to 2026. We're not near where we were back then as far as we have so much more access to so many more things now. We have streaming access. We have, the ability to catch stuff, clips and news clip is almost at a instantaneous pace. So the way we consume has completely changed. And so now that because we consume things on a different basis, on a much more on a grander scale, the MCU has kind of tried to do the same thing. They've kind of tried to make it bigger, because everything has gotten bigger and faster and more and more and more. So the MCU tried to answer that call. And I think the problem with it is that in trying to answer that call, they cast, as we said, they cast too wide of a net because you're trying to appease way too many different avenues to catch this media. You're trying to do television, you're trying to do movies, animated, you're talking about video games. Like they're spreading themselves out to try to tell, a cohesive story, but they're doing it across multiple platforms. And it makes for a very convoluted storytelling technique to say the least, if that makes sense. So I think that we have to just make sure in understanding what Marvel did wrong, we have to also understand that they're kind of a victim of the time that they were in, right? Because again, 2008 was a different time than 2026, and now we get information at a rapid pace, and anytime somebody's spotted out somewhere, there's a leaked picture or leaked whatever. Back then in 2008, you might have gotten a picture, you know, maybe a dark blog spot would have found a picture and posted it up, and then maybe it would have been confirmed, maybe it wouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like it was just such a different news feed and news type back then versus what it is now. So the landscape has changed, and I think that Marvel tried to change with it, but they tried a little too hard, if that makes sense.
It does. And again, they tried to go ahead and spread themselves, like you said, spread themselves thin is what they did. So
Hmm.
the question I get in regards to it is what happens now with Doomsday and Secret Wars and the soft reboot, although it'll probably be more like a very visual reboot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe come Secret Wars. What happens then with the Marvel Cinematic Universe after which, and will it ever achieve those same heights? It's easy to say no, that it will
Yeah.
never achieve the heights of the past 10 years. My hope is that it does, that a new generation by the time 2035, 2037, 2040 comes around, that once again, Marvel will be the talk of the entertainment world. But I don't know. And I know that there are a lot of people within the industry who are silently cheering as far as, or not so silently cheering as far as the demise of Marvel in recent years because of how they've categorized superhero movies. But anything that brings people to the theaters, anything that brings event viewing for fans, I don't think you should poo-poo on. And the Scorseses and all those others who have criticized the superhero films, again, it may not be to your taste, but it's bring people in the theater, bringing people into the theaters. And if you bring people into theaters for the Marvel film, for the superhero films, it can also possibly, by sheer proxy, bring them back to watch more films. So, with that being said, where does the future go from here for Marvel? Is the thing that I'm asked a lot on out there. And the question, when that's laid out, I said, well, after Secret Wars, the belief is that it's going to be a soft reboot of the series, which will more than likely involve a lot of the X-Men. The Midnight Suns has been talked about as far as the, with the disillusion of Blade. That movie is now no longer
Mhm.
in existence, from what I've told in recent weeks. That the Blade movie has been discontinued. Oh, for some reason, they can't think of a vampire movie, so there you go. So they're just
There
going to
it
put
is.
Mahershala Ali again. I really think he would be a great Blade, and I think they missed the mark on not bringing him sooner into the universe. And don't tell me, that he's already in the Marvel universe. He kind of is. Yeah, I know he spoke to Jon Snow off camera. Yeah, yeah. So technically, yes, he is. But you guys know what I mean. I mean, an active participant. So with that said, I think the future for Marvel is kind of hazy. But if the expectations early on are not as high, like they once were when Iron Man came out, they
Well,
can.
I don't think they weren't high when Iron Man came out. They
No, that's what
were.
I'm saying. That's
Oh,
what I'm
okay, got
saying.
you.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
Iron Man came out, the expectations weren't high there either. Iron Man
Right.
was not a plus superhero. It was a kind of a afterthought, a superhero as far as I'm concerned. Why did they doing this? Why are they putting that out there? Then they realized, why RDJ, this troubled actor who had a troubled past, why are they putting him here in this form? But it fit like a glove. So after the soft reboot that will be Secret Wars when that comes out, I am hoping the expectations will not be as large when the X-Men become a pillar of the MCU going forward, the Midnight Suns, and whoever and whatever else Marvel brings to the table going forward, and that they can exceed those expectations given enough time.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think it's easy to say no. But here's where I actually would push back and say I think that it's possible. Now, two things can be true at the same time. One, you won't be able to rediscover Marvel, and what I mean by that is the magic that RDJ and John Favreau and that entire team was able to create with Iron Man 1 at a time where Marvel films were just not looked at that way. You can't recreate that. So if we're talking about the magic, the wonder of the MCU, then it's going to be very, very difficult to do that. You're right, because you can't rediscover America. Like it's already been done. So now that we've gotten to experience that, it's not new. We have to find new ways to make it exciting. And I think with this take, post Secret Wars Marvel and post visual spectacle but soft reboot of the MCU, what that looks like is being able to really kind of tell any story that they want to tell with different characters and maybe find little lines in the sand where they can create stories that tie into other stories, but not necessarily have to have them all tie in. And understand that now we're in a real multiverse. What I mean by real multiverse is being able to tell stories from Earth 616 versus Earth 2001, or whatever Earth that they want to use, Earth Prime, whatever term they want to use. Being able to tell these different stories that don't necessarily have to have a connecting thread, could have a connecting thread, could have a possible team up, doesn't necessarily need to have a team up. Like there's different ways they can go. I think that now, because it's been so low, quote unquote, even though they're still bringing in money hand over fist, right? It's the reception hasn't been as well. I think now that they've gotten to that point, they're really in a position to where they can kind of, I don't want to say relax, because that's not what I mean. That's going to sound funny, but they can really get back to just telling good stories and not be necessarily held to this. We have to connect these tissues, we have to connect these different threads in different ways to tell this one big story arc. Just tell your story now. Just tell your story with the characters that you want to tell it with. Obviously you're going to have your franchises, your tent poles, and those aren't going to go away. The X-Men are who the X-Men are, and we're excited for them to show up in a bigger way than they already have. But you'll be able to kind of just tell other stories, and maybe there's a connected thread to it, maybe there's not. But I think that because the expectations are kind of low, they're going to have a much easier time to recreate some magic and maybe kind of recreate themselves in the same sense. So I'm feeling pretty good about where Marvel is going. Obviously, they're not there yet. You know, we've got a long way to wait till Doomsday, and then even longer to wait till Secret Wars. So we've got some time, but I feel like they've got a good opportunity here.
Once again, it is, of course, TJ Johnson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching this. We truly appreciate you joining us. Again, these are questions that are brought to us on a regular basis over the course of what we do in the show and plus outside of the world of podcasting, when we're out in everyday life, because I have
Yeah.
constant conversations in the world of pop culture. And I have a feeling TJ does as well, whether it's at work, whether it's at home with the family. We get lots of conversations going, especially because of people. Oh, you do a pop culture show. Well, how about this? How about
Hmm.
that? Yeah, how about this? How
Hmm.
about that? So with that, my friend, where do we go to next on your list of questions that you have?
All right. So the next question I get asked a lot is particularly about DC and the DC universe is everything that DC does or previous to the new DCEU that James Gunn has started, but everything that they did previously always seemed to be subpar. I mean, I guess post Batman trilogy, Nolan verse Batman. I seem to be very, very subpar. The only thing that DC has just absolutely killed it in is their animation. And I think the question becomes, why do we feel like the DC animation can work so much better than the live action counterparts? And I think that that is an interesting question, and it's a bit twofold because we have to look at it from the standpoint of I think DC characters, and Gerald chime in as you feel necessary, feel the need to, but I feel like DC characters and DC superheroes are kind of appeared to be a bit larger than life for the most part. I mean, uh, we've got superheroes, and when I say superhero, I'm talking about men who can fly and lift worlds and go at the speed of light and faster than the speed of light. Like these characters have these superpowers that are so grandiose that I have to imagine it's pretty darn hard to really showcase that in a live action setting consistently, right? But that's something that's perfect for animation because animated wise, these powers are so grand and so big that you can really do a whole lot more with an animated set than you can with a live action set. So I've always been in the camp of it's easier to do animation. And, you know, I use the term easier like I've ever done it, but it's easier to do animation because you don't have to work with the limitations of being physical. So I think that's why DC's animation is so good. But the flip side to that is why is Marvel's animation not as good? And I don't know if I have an answer for that. I feel like DC just really has a strong casting director in Andrea Romano. I want to say I think her name is Andrea Romano. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Chat, let me know if I'm wrong. But Andrea Romano, I think, is the casting director, and she does a fantastic job with these voice actors. Now, obviously, these are voice actors who sometimes do real acting, so it's a bit of a double dip, if you will. But it's not just about finding a big name person to do the role. It's about finding the right person to do the role, the person that brings the right level of gravitas, the person that brings the right level of energy and emotion and feeling to the role, and understanding the nuance of having the best person for the role versus having somebody who might just be really, really good as opposed to somebody who might be the best. And you have a big name that could be really, really good, but maybe have a smaller name that might be even better. And being willing to go out and say, hey, we're going to go with this person versus this person. I mean, there's so much that goes into that process. I've been on the other side of that process auditioning for that. And I can tell you how hard it is just to audition and just to build up the energy and build up the enthusiasm and put yourself into those shoes to do that. And so I can only imagine how much harder it is for a casting director to take a look at all those different examples, snippets, whatever the case may be, and try to feel whatever that person is trying to emote through just the sound of their voice. So I think that's really what kind of does help put DC over the edge is its animation, the voice directing, all the above, and then being able to tell a story that a lot of people really have been rooting for DC for a long time. It's not that people don't like Marvel, but DC has always, at least let me rephrase it for me. DC was home before Marvel was. I enjoyed DC stories before I enjoyed Marvel stories. I enjoyed Marvel stories, but I was always a Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman guy. I just was. When I got to Marvel, it was the X-Men, it was Spider-Man, it was those entry characters that really got me. Maybe a little bit of the Fantastic Four later on. But I was never a huge Marvel guy. But DC, I was DC all day. My favorite comic book to this day is The Death in the Family, when the Joker killed Jason Todd, the second Robin. So I hope that's not a spoiler for anybody at this point. But spoiler alert: the second Robin was killed by the Joker. So that's still my favorite comic book to this day. I have to imagine that I have a bit of a bias in regards to DC, but it doesn't change the fact that DC really has been kicking the snot out of Marvel as far as the animation is concerned. So I think that's why. Um, but as I've just admitted to, I'm a bit biased. So Gerald, I'm curious as to what you think the reason it is that the DC animation is working so much better than the live action, and why they're working so much better than Marvel's animation as well.
Well, I don't know if it's working as well as it once did. In the 90s, those DC animated stories, the Batman animated series is considered and should be rightly considered as one of the greatest animated series of all time. There's
Absolutely.
no question about that. And it
Yeah.
proceeded itself throughout the rest of that decade as far as what they did, even into early 2000s. And then they went on a binge as far as creating a lot of straight to videos movies and then
Mhm.
other things, as far as a ton of straight to video movies
Yes.
that they did, some of which hit, some of which didn't. But this day, they actually have the Harley Quinn series on HBO Max that's still thought of in a pretty decent light. It's not um, at that same kind of level DC animation I think that it once was. I actually think if you say it right now, Marvel animation is probably, as far as storytelling, with the help of Sony, of course, and those Into the Spider-Verse movies. I think they've taken the lead on DC, but DC is still a better place to story, a more consistent place of good storytelling than what we've seen from the live action side from DC over the course of the years. The Snyderverse, I think ultimately, when you look at it, if you look at it from a long lens, you're probably going to say that the Snyderverse underwhelmed, especially financially, as far as what the vision was and what it ultimately came to pass. I know a lot of people that still swear by it. Uh, Go ahead, but the results matter in a lot of cases, and
I know you swear by it,
there's
but
not
yeah, yeah,
one
go ahead, go ahead.
there's not one DC movie that stood up financially, results wise, comparative to whatever was on the Marvel side. But
Right.
that being said, the DC universe now, until now, with a new regime in place, and it's interesting because at the time we're recording this, the Star Wars universe, Kathleen Kennedy, and those are one of the two subjects I want to hit before we head on out. Is Star Wars and GTA 6. So I just wanted to prepare you on that.
Uh-oh.
Star Wars made a decision, an executive, and it's being patterned similarly to what DC has done with Warner Brothers has done with DC, to go with a creative head and a financial head instead of one person that's overseeing it all. So I thought that was kind of interesting because my daughter pointed that actually to me is it's oh, doing it just like Warner Brothers did with DC. I said, yes, you're right. Absolutely. They are. And so with that, they've gotten off to a great note. The Superman is, spoilers upon all spoilers, is your best of pop culture, one of your best of pop culture for the Superman movie. I thought it wasn't a bad movie either. I thought it was pretty good and a pretty good start to a universe. I still have questions going forward with what James Gunn's creative is all about, as far as what I see, TJ, with it. That's it's concerning because as your Supergirl, it's a nice story, but you're now putting it in the middle of the summer as something that's supposed to garner a great following, and we'll see how it is because I think she's got some charisma, and I really like what she brings to it. So this may be a hit for Warner Brothers, but it's not the place I would go as far as the character I would go to lead the next movie behind Superman. I'll just put it at that. And then after that, Clayface is supposed to still be on the docket for this year. That I have a big concern about as far as, if you're putting that out there as a film and not a series or an animated series, I have great concerns about what you're doing that going forward as well. So again, it's starting off on a great note now, but with the DC animation, again, no one can talk about how they didn't dominate the 90s with some of the best animation, even with the Marvel's X-Men in the 90s. I still think if you put two and two together in the 90s, I would say the DC animation as a whole dominated that decade and into the 2000s. And again, they put out a absolute ton of straight to video movies. The question remains, though, is now that the tide of their animation, as far as it leads a little bit towards Marvel at this point, I would say, in my opinion. I still think, again, the concern should be on the live action front with what James Gunn is now planning and the direction that he's now making for what's upcoming. I have great concerns about what's coming up forward as well.
Yeah, well, okay, so two things. One, I think that yes, if we're talking about animation wise, the only thing that Marvel has really completely completely eclipsed DC on would be the Spider Verse.
Well,
Anything
that's
that they've
I said as a
well, yeah, you
preface,
said
get
large
help
part.
from
You said
Sony.
large part, right? But with that being said, those are two movies. I don't think we can. I don't think I can't say that based off of those two movies that Marvel did with Sony's help, that
And the
they're
X-Men revival, 97 revival, which was
okay.
a
And
big hit on
X-Men,
Disney
yep,
Plus.
absolutely, and huge for me. So I'm not knocking that, but I'm just saying that those are very recent wins. But I don't know if I'd say that that's enough to put it over DC quite yet. I just don't.
At this point, I would. At this point,
Yeah.
I would.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Well, we
At
can
this
agree to
point in time,
disagree.
I,
If-
I
In
mean,
in 2025, 2026. Okay, you can say that. I get it.
because all they
I
have is
guess
Harley Quinn right now, and some
right.
specials that they've done, special movies, straight to video movies, that are not as memorable as what they used to put out. As far as what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair. I think I thought more highly of Apocalypse War than you did. Um
Mhm.
so for me, it's not as far ahead. I mean, I
And
think
I'm
the
not saying
Spider-Verse
DC
was
is
good.
bad. I'm not saying
Oh, I know
DC
you're not.
animation
I
is
know you're
bad.
not.
No.
You're okay. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't know if I can consider it that much further ahead. Even though I can see where you would
No,
say it's ahead. I can see where you
it's
would
a
say it's
slight.
ahead,
It's a
especially
slight
with
ahead. Yeah.
and I think that I even forgot how good that X-Men 97 was. Like X-Men 97 was good. That episode, remember remember me. Oh my gosh. Like I still get chills and I know exactly what's gonna happen every time I watch that episode. And I
And I don't know about
still
your opinions on the. I mean, I do know about your opinions on the what if. I don't know your guys' out there your opinions on the what if and Marvel Zombie series. I know that that animation style isn't for everyone.
yeah.
It did earn some nominations for best animated series with both the Golden Globes, I believe, and also as well the Emmys, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not in love with it.
Yeah.
I thought that they only finally got a handle on that style of animation in probably one or two episodes of this latest zombie season, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But again, that putting that aside, I still think they have a slight advantage. Again, both
Yeah.
are putting out good products. There's nothing that they're
Yeah.
putting out
For sure.
consistently that's trash or bad right now. It's just I would probably lean one toward the other. I mean, Star Wars is all over the place with this animation.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We
Yeah,
won't talk about
yeah,
Star
yes,
Wars.
yeah. Let's
We
so we'll get to talk
we
about
don't
Star
talk
Wars
about
here in a
Bruno.
sec.
We don't
But
talk
I'll let
about
you.
Bruno.
Yes, well, we're going to talk Star Wars here in a second. So, but what are your final thoughts on Marvel before we head on to a
I
galaxy far,
th-
far away,
I think that
or DC, I should say.
no, you're good. I picked up what you're putting down. I think that what really, and it's like I mentioned, I think the difference becomes there's a lot more heart in a lot of the DC animated films that I've seen. There's a lot more going on underneath the surface, and it's not that Marvel hasn't done that. but I don't feel like they've been able to do that as consistently as DC has. And because of that, DC has the edge. Now, that doesn't mean that Marvel can't do it. Clearly, I mean, X-Men 97 was by far some of the best animation, some of the best animated storytelling that I've seen in really since like Spider-Verse. Like it was that good, right? And it was a series, so it was a great opportunity to kind of feel like I was back in my Saturday morning PJs eating my frosted flakes and watching X-Men on Saturday morning, every Saturday morning. So I definitely don't disagree with that. I just know that the DC animated has been so good for so long that it to me it still has the edge over Marvel. But it doesn't mean that Marvel's not coming up real quick. Marvel's coming up, but for me, it's still DC.
With that, again, it is, of course, PC's Multiverse. It is the great one himself, TJ Johnson, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. So before we get to the behemoth question that I get a little bit on GTA 6,
Oh goodness.
I do want to touch on that, and because I'm not sure how much I'll be able when we do straight stories as far as news stories and hit up on that. We do a lot like 5 to 10 minutes for the story, but sometimes you want to go deeper on GTA 6. I do want to go on GTA 6, in a little bit, but for first, it is Star Wars, and again, we talked about at as of this recording, Kathleen Kennedy finally has stepped out. I swear I thought she
Yeah,
was stepping down at the end of the year. I thought that was said. I guess I was wrong, so I apologize if that was misconstrued when I reported at that time. I thought the thought was that she was stepping down at the end of the year. That
say
was
no,
not the
she's
case,
done.
or that or she said in a later statement that she rescinded that. And yeah, it's conflicting stories from what I look on the internet. But anyways, okay, it's just after the first of the year, and she stepped down. And of course, again, Dave Filoni is going to lead the creative side. There's going to be a financial head as well, similar to what they do right now with Warner Brothers and DC. So the question I often get about the Star Wars universe is, when it comes to Star Wars, did is the Star Wars is the Force gone with Star Wars going forward on a live action movie basis or as a universe as a whole, my friend?
Ooh, ooh. Okay, so I've gotten that question a couple times too, and I think the easy answer is to say, yeah, yeah, the magic is gone. However, there is still something inherently cool about grabbing a flashlight and flicking it on as if it's a lightsaber. There is still something inherently awesome about this idea that this every person can rise up and become something that they had no idea, because they just had these dreams of grandeur and these desires to be part of something bigger than what they were. So I do and I don't. And what I mean by I do and I don't is that it's really hard in this day and age to appeal to this same level of kid because again, you got to remember when Star Wars came out, the world was a much different place, and we were dealing with a lot more different things than what we're dealing with today, and having a lot of other kind of distractions than we have today. So when you have these franchises that started off so long ago and are now made for generations after generations, right? Because it's been a few generations since Star Wars has come out. It's not going to hit the same. And I think we have to remember and we have to be willing to understand that it can't be the same. Oftentimes we tend to romanticize the past. I've done so with basketball. I've done so with some video games. I've done so just with life in general. But we have to remember that those things that came out at that particular time were designed for the time that they came out and maybe not necessarily designed for the times that we are in currently. So what worked back then in the 70s when the first Star Wars came out isn't going to work in 2026, 50 years later almost at this point. And it's going to be a different type of animal. So I don't know how to answer that in a way that's going to sound hopeful. What I can say is that there are good ways to tell Star Wars tales, even modern Star Wars tales. I mean, I look back at Rogue One, one of my favorite Star Wars films ever made. And there was barely a lightsaber in it because there was so much heart. And at the end of it, it was a story based in the Star Wars universe, but you could have put that story in any universe and it would have worked well. But that connective tissue, understand that what they did directly tied into what happened with the rebels in their, the original trilogy. Like it all was a connective tissue that was very, very nice, but it was a good movie in regardless of that connective tissue. Regardless of that, there was just so many other things that worked very, very well in that film. So it's possible, yes. How to do that consistently, that's going to be a difficult task. I think they have to really just get away from the Luke Skywalker. They have to get away from Skywalkers. They have to find a way to go to a different part of the galaxy that we haven't explored yet. So no more Tatooine, no more of any of that, and go to a galaxy further away than what they've already been, and just give us a whole new team, a whole new part of a different galaxy, and let's try something different. But they have to get away from from Skywalkers. They have to. Like there's just no other way. The chosen one story, it's been done. It hasn't worked, or it worked for the time, but it's time to let that go and try something a little bit different. So can it happen? I'm sure it can. I just don't see it without them venturing to a galaxy even further away than what they've already done.
As the kids say, 100%, my friend. Josh and I have had this conversation before, and I think they just have to get out of the Skywalker era. They have to get out of the Skywalker realm and go into a new galaxy far, far away. And I'm not sure if they're going to do that. They have first couple movies will tell you right now that they're not going to do that with Mandalorian and Grogu, which has ties to the original trilogy. And then this last Starfighter, which is not too far away from the stuff that went on during the original trilogy. Tom Cruise lightsaber battle, regardless. So with that, though, again, I just feel TJ that they have to evolve and try something new, something that is not going to appeal to how should I say it, us older gentlemen
Mhm.
and us older crowd and us older men and women as far as at 25 and up. Sorry. They need a Star Wars universe that kids right now can grow up with and call their own. Same thing with the MCU, with the Marvel, with DC, with all of these. They're just going at it and they're trying to throw and see what sticks continuously. I get it. But the way these things resonate throughout time is if you can say you grew up with it. And for a lot of the kids out there that are now adults or going to
Mhm.
college or doing whatever, a lot of them grew up with the Marvel universe as
Yep.
their thing for a decade. With myself, I can tell you I grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy. That was a part of my youth since the age of 8, and by the time Return of the Jedi ended, I was already a teenager. But I have those imprints of that original trilogy throughout the rest of my life. These individuals, in order to go ahead and to survive, as far as out there, as far as these projects, these IPs that we're so familiar with, if they are going to survive and thrive, eventually they're going to have to wean themselves off of their current eras. And this goes again, not just for Star Wars, but Star Wars especially. But sorry to say this, everyone, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, all of them are going to have to wean themselves into a new era that people can, that are now, or kids that are now in their 8, 9, 10-year olds area that can call their own, that they can go ahead and enjoy and love and share with their kids generations down the line. That's what I think ultimately will lead to that kind of success, is if they will get that kind of establishment going forward. And we're going to see that with Star Trek because Paramount has said that they're going to go ahead and start from scratch with a new Star Trek going forward once the Star Trek Academy series and once the Strange New World series are done. They're going to go with a new movie set with a new Star Trek going forward. Okay, we'll see how that one works out. But again,
Right.
with the, I mean, it never worked out on a huge scale on a live of action movie center place in the first place. So we'll see how it worked out. It's always been more of a TV product than a movie product, but
Hmm.
I would love
Hmm.
Star Trek to be a movie success at some point down the road. But be that as it may, with Star Wars is dependent, no matter on the movies, no matter how
Yes.
good Andor is, and Andor is the greatest thing because I wasn't as big high on Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was okay,
Mm,
but Rogue One is now much better to me because of Andor.
got
Andor
it.
is the greatest thing to happen to Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back, and it's not
Mm.
even close, and it's not even funny. It's not just nothing else in the Star Wars universe since Empire Strikes Back. Even Return of the Jedi, which I really like, nothing compares to a Star Andor as far as it's concerned. So, be that as it may, they need to go into a different universe in order to tell new stories that people can relate to going forward, because I think there is, it's just it, otherwise we're going to have to create new IP. Otherwise Hollywood entertainment is going to have to create new IP that people can grow up with, so that event viewing going forward, because there's right now a great concern about the box office and all that,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
far as the movie theaters going forward. Well, give them a reason to go, give them a reason to go, and give them a reason to coming back, because after we die off, what's the next generation going to do next?
Well, it's really give them a reason to go and give them a reason to experience it in the theaters, right? Because we talked about this idea of, once the pandemic happened and it really kind of proved, I don't really need to go to the movie to watch this, and this, because they can release it on demand and I can get the same experience at home, um, for movies that I don't necessarily need to have this huge 100-foot screen to enjoy it on. So yes, they have to be able to create something that draws people in, but has to be able to create something that draws people into the theater to make it a spectacle again. And like you said, I don't think Star Trek is really designed for the movies that well. Obviously, they've had good movies, but those good movies that they've had have been based upon the TV show that they came from. So when you had the
Mhm.
Wrath of Khan and all the other Star Trek films, they were based on the TV show. So it wasn't like they had the TV show.
The
It wasn't like the,
reboot was
yeah,
based off the TV show.
was based off the TV show, still based off that same timeline. So it just it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult when you can't let that go. And it's easy, right? And Hollywood has this thing, as you kind of alluded to, sequelitis, right? They just have to make something based off of a property that's been there before because it's scary trying to create a new IP. I understand that. I get that concept. It's scary venturing into something that you don't know, especially when you got to put a lot of money into it and you're hoping for a good return on that investment. It's easy to just play it safe and go with what you feel like everybody's already familiar with, and they're going to want more of, and that's great. However, there's going to come a point in time where people that wanted that product die off. The people that wanted the product from the 70s are going to die off. The people that wanted the product from the 80s are going to die off. We are all going to die off. None of us are getting out of this alive. So you have to be willing to reinvent. You have to be willing to try something new, try something bold. And you have to be willing to take a loss. And what I mean by that is you have to have a creative vision as an artist, as a director, as a producer, as a storyboard creator. You have to have this desire to want to do something different, and you have to be willing to stand on it and say this is the vision that I have for it. The one thing you can say, you can talk a lot of crap about Ryan Johnson and what he did with Star Wars, right? We could talk a lot of crap about how Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker character died off in the second Star Wars film that Ryan Johnson did, or the second of that newer trilogy of Star Wars film that Ryan Johnson did. We can talk a lot of crap about it, but what I can appreciate is he stood by his vision. This is the way he wanted to do it. And I know that he had to have gotten backlash before it was released. I know he had to have somebody come up to him and say, hey, this is not going to go over very well. And I can appreciate him sticking to his story and him continuing to march forward with what he feels like would be a natural progression. Um, to have a character such as Luke Skywalker, who's always been the epitome of hope, turn around and be a hermit and have done something so horrible that he put himself into hiding. That's a big deal. It's not that Luke never flirted with the dark side of the Force before. We've seen that plenty in the comics. but we never got to see it in real life, and we never got to see it in real life in live action. So seeing Ryan Johnson have that particular take on Star Wars, granted, a lot of people didn't like it, but I can appreciate his effort in doing so. And I bring that up to say that there have to be directors and there have to be people that are willing to take those kind of risks and willing to take those kind of gambles and chances, and maybe even taking it further than that. And like you said, getting away from the Skywalkers completely and just going into a much, much further away galaxy. They've got to be willing to do that. And you can always still have that connective tissue of being part of the Star Wars universe. It's not like those things didn't happen. It's not like the Skywalker saga didn't happen, but it's no different than, what they're trying to do with the new Mass Effect game and trying to say, okay, well, all that stuff happened with the Reapers and Commander Shepard and all that in the first three trilogies. But now we're going to go to a different part of the galaxy that has different issues and different problems. And, even if it's 100,000 years later, they can allude to that stuff, but you have to be willing to venture off. And all these IPs, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Star Trek, all of them, even Indiana Jones at some point, they're gonna have to find a way to go into a different direction, to appease a different audience, because it's gonna be a different time, different day.
Well, we're gonna have to do another one of these again real soon. But one last thing before we end out, I guess I'm not gonna have as much time as we would like here with less than 9 minutes left. But I do want to go ahead and mention GTA 6 because a question I have gotten, and a question that is on everybody's minds, is how big is GTA 6 going to be? Because everybody assumes that within the first few days we'll see all the stats that it'll be the biggest entertainment launch in history, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you're going to charge $100 for the game, yeah, you're probably going to have the biggest entertainment launch in history. But what happens then? What happens after that? And I want to go into the thing that's where GTA 5 has redefined what video game sales could be,
Yeah.
because over a decade later it still sells. Yeah, it's under $20 because of course it's going to sell at under $20, but it still sells, and it has earned over, I think, 150 million copies to date out there, and that's just an amazing thing. Will
Staggering.
GTA 6 meet that kind of success? I'll get the actual numbers here a second while I hear your thoughts on it. But my answer is, well, it's where the industry is headed. The industry is headed away from consoles. I mean, the younger generations are buying and playing less consoles. They're playing their games somewhere else. They're playing it on different platforms. They're playing it as far as games and entertainment in different fashions than we have done for so many decades and so many years. So consoles are going to become less and less relevant. Physical copies are going to become less and less relevant. So with
Ugh,
that,
ugh,
while you will
ugh.
see at the end of this year, should GTA 6 still be coming out in November, the one of the biggest, if not the biggest entertainment launch in history, I don't think you will see the kind of tail that we've seen from GTA 5, no matter how many platforms you try to put in, because the number of platforms that you're going to put at GTA 6 won't be as extensive as the roadmap was for GTA 5.
Oh, I don't disagree with that, and it goes back into exactly what we've been talking about, kind of throughout this particular episode, this podcast, is that it was different. Again, GTA 5 originally released over 10 years ago. That's a
Mhm.
decade. You know how much has changed in those 10 years? Like the landscape is completely different than it
And I
was.
undersold it by a little, TJ, and I'm sorry. I want to apologize. That the records from Rockstar show that it's 215 million
Oh,
units.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Got to get that right.
mhm.
Got to get that right. Got to give them their just dues. But it's a different day and age. So the way people again consume media is going to be different. So it really depends on how they try to launch this game. If this is going to be a console game only, or are we going to find a way for them to stream it? Are we going to find a way for them to go the Skyrim route and put it on handhelds and cell phones and different stores? If you're going to put it on the Apple Store, you're going to put it on the Google Play Store. Like they've got to find a way to be able to for this to have the legs that GTA 5 doesn't. And to be honest, I don't believe it will, because I don't believe it's possible for it to. We don't consume media the same way. We don't do it the same way. We don't. We don't sit in the living room and play games the way we used to. We don't hang around our friends and play games the way we used to. Now we're going towards esports. We're going towards competition for money, and that's where people's attention tends to go nowadays, is because they're wanting to monetize what they do. And it's I don't see it happening, but I don't see it happening due to a lack of desire or effort from the developers or the game developers. It's
Yeah,
just not who we
absolutely.
are anymore. You know what I mean? It's just not how we get down.
Well, again, when it comes to GTA 6, as far as an open world standpoint, it will once again redefine the industry. I most likely is what we'll say from it. But where it stands points as far as 215 million sales, no, I don't think it
Yeah.
will reach that. I don't think it will reach that just because the fact that GTA 5 came along at a perfect point in time for consoles
Yes, it did.
going forward. And that's the thing. That's the advantage that GTA 6 does not have. And while there are enough consoles to support a huge opening at launch, especially
Right.
because I'm assuming it's going to be out on a lot of different platforms. Although Rockstar and PC, I don't get understand why they still are just so hard on PC users when it comes to what they do. Are
Because
they
they
so
want
scared of
consoles,
modding?
sir.
Yeah, but it's again, it's PC is now a major entity in this business, and to always shun them, not put it on the same ship at the same day and date, or wait for a period of time before you put it out on PC. I just does not make sense to me. Uh, but that's a Rockstar thing that they have internally, and I'll just leave it at that. But I just do not see the same kind of tale, the
Yeah.
Avatar tale, to put an Avatar tale. I mean,
Yeah.
Avatar is something that we can always count on, like we're seeing with this latest film. That it
Yeah.
it may not get the biggest numbers at launch, but it will go ahead and have that continuous tale for weeks and months going on before it fades into pop culture obscurity once again. And then also, they bring it back. Disney brings it back out, and yeah, there you go, Avatar once again. But I will just say this again, TJ. When it comes to GTA 6, no one out there can deny what kind of success it will do initially. It's just, how does Rockstar map GTA 6 going forward for the next decade? I'm not going to say it's impossible to reach 215 million in sales. I'm just gonna, I'm here in Vegas, so you bet on things. I would bet the
Right.
under 215 million sales, because I just don't know of all the platforms. Now, mind you, I don't know what technology comes down 10 years from now, but I just don't know how many different platforms they can put GTA 6 on that will remind people how good it could really be.
Yeah, again, they caught lightning in a bottle, man. And the fact that they were able to put it on three different generations, GTA 5, I'm referring to. The fact they were able to put it on three different generations, is in the 360, the PS3, the PS4, and the Xbox One, and then now the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5. It's kind of impressive. It's very, 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 very much a big deal. And I just don't foresee that being able to be something that they can replicate again. And I don't know if they should replicate that. I don't know if that should be their goal, because if that's their goal, they'll never come out that. How long have we been waiting for Star Commander? How long have they been in how long have they been trying to get that game off the ground and out of asking for people money, out of Kickstarter, and like it's been forever. So I
And they
don't
made
think that that's
hundreds
a
of millions of dollars
yeah.
in that.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. And that game is still not. I mean, I've been hearing about Star Commander for God, for a very, very long time. So I don't think it's gonna happen. I think they can't do things based on if that's going to happen, because I don't see it.
Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot
This
thank
has
you
been
enough for
fun.
being a part of
Yeah.
it. As always, some great questions. We got to go ahead and approach this subject again as far as questions people throw at us on a regular basis. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
You know what, man? I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the future of games. I'm excited for the future of this show. I'm excited for the future in general. And just it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be buckle up. Let's say that. Buckle up.
And by the way, it's Star Citizen, not Star Commander. Everyone
Oh, I'm
out there,
sorry. Star
Star
Citizen. Yes.
Citizen. Yeah,
Yes.
and no,
Thank
it's
you.
not. So, but again, who knows whenever that will come back? I think I'll be dead by that time, so it
It might
won't
be
matter.
Star Commander by the time it comes out. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows what it'll be? But I tell you what, great to have you here, my friend, and great to have you a part of what we do here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for TJ Johnson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great